Well, hello, I'm Julie Slater, and this is Smoochie. She's a 6-year-old this year, and she's been on winter turnout, so she's a little bit thinner than she usually is, and a little bit scruffy. And but I want to show you some of the things that I do about saddling. I've been breaking horses for a long time for other people, for my clients, since I was probably about 19 years old. And in the last 30 years, I've been finding some little tricks and tips, or tricks, to make me get along with the different horses that I run across. I've ridden warm bloods and thoroughbreds and Hasselfinos and Arabs and of course these stock horses and quarter horses and little horses and big horses and fat horses and thin horses, and I use pretty much the same saddle or two saddles for all of them. And these are the ways that I get along with making one or two saddles fit many different back types. I've got 3 pads here: a blanket, felt pad, and this foam pad. This is a egg carton foam that I get from Walmart, and it's a twin size. I usually buy the twin size, and I can get one twin size one for $9, $10, $11. I don't know how much. But I make 2 pads out of it, and I have a few leftover pieces, which I'll show you how I use them later. So first, because she does have a pretty good back and there is no problems with the way that she carries the saddle, I'm just going to put the felt pad on. Okay, so here we've got the padding of the felt pad, and it's a good decent felt pad. It's not wore out or anything. So we're going to go ahead and put this on top, like so. And you'll figure out why I do it like this. As soon as we put the saddle on, it'll become pretty obvious very fast. I always like to have things pretty neat. Now, this saddle is what we call a full quarter horse bars, and that's the width of these bars right here. But there's differences in full quarter horse bars. It depends on how wide your gullet is. So this is a pretty wide gulleted saddle. It is actually the biggest saddle that I have, the widest saddle that I have. And that is the saddle that fits the Smooch the best. I got 2. I got one that's a little bit narrower, and use that mostly for the colts. Get this, I'm going to squeeze it up in here to where it comes off the withers. The withers have a set of nerves in them that are really tender. So you really do want to get your saddle away from it. Now you can see the saddle sitting up on top of Smooch here. It's off the withers pretty nicely. I got this pad. I've got this pad, and I've got this pad, and I've got this blanket right here. And this pad is the squishiest. See how much give it has? It gives right down to nothing. And this is my most important pad. So basically, this is how I deal with the different backs and individual horses. Horses that are thin, horses that are fat, horses that have good backs, horses that have bad backs, horses that are built, of different breeds that are a little bit different than your regular old quarter horses. They're all going to carry this saddle or that other one, and using this egg carton foam pad, I make them fit for every horse. At least be comfortable. They don't fit, but they're going to be comfortable. Now, be aware that if you have a saddle if you have a thin horse or a narrower type horse, and a saddle that is too wide for that horse, you can work with that. You can go ahead and add a few pads carefully, but you can add some pads and with knowledge and make that bigger saddle work on that smaller horse. But if you've got a big old tank of a horse and a little bitty narrow old saddle, then there's probably not much you're going to be able to do about it. This little guy is Jet. He's a colt. He hasn't been saddled in a while. He got hurt. Had himself cut up. and he's a 3-year-old, so he's gonna be a lot narrower all the way around than the smooch. He's just coming 3. His chest is not going to be developed. His back is not going to be developed. The whole horse is going to be narrow. So I'm going to put the smaller saddle on him. There's not that, they're both full quarter horse bars, but the smaller saddle is going to fit this horse a lot better. Now, if you look at the saddle here, the angle of the bars is the same as the angle of the other saddle, but the space in between here and here is smaller. That makes it quite a bit smaller saddle. And we really don't want any part of the saddle and as little of the pads as we can to be touching those tender withers. That's that bony ridge right here at the top by the end of the mane. And now I've got quite a bit of cushioning, even though I have not very much money invested in my pads. The foam is usually about, like I said, $5 for each. The blanket will be $14, $15, and the felt will be about $20. So it's a little bit less than the $150 that folks spend, and I think it pads better than any $150 pad that I've ever seen. It just does a better job of absorbing, of cushioning what I need to cushion and of holding up what I need to have held
This
up.
particular horse has really high withers, and he's young still. He's just coming 3 this year. So his withers are, they've grown a little bit bigger than his shoulders allow for. This particular horse here has a weak spot in his back right there. If you see right here, he's a pretty narrow little guy still. Now, knowing the way that this horse is built, the way he's standing right here, you can clearly see the hollow spots in his shoulder. Right here's a hollow spot, and right there is a hollow spot. Mostly because he's young, he doesn't have the muscling yet. You can see how high the withers is. And when I put the saddle on that, when we're going to saddle this horse, and there's not a saddle in the world that's built to deal with that. If I was to set the saddle back, I would set the bars of the saddle smack dab in the middle of his back strap, which of course as a coming 3-year-old is not very strong yet, and I would sit too far back on the horse, putting a lot of my weight onto the kidneys. The saddle is not going to fit where it has to sit. It's just not gonna. And there's no saddle in the world that's going to fit right there where I want to put it. So I'm going to use my padding to help the saddle out. Now, that's not going to be perfect. The saddle's still not going to fit. But the padding will make it somewhat better.
As I saddle this little guy, so what I want to do is I want to get some padding into this. This little thing is squishy. There's nothing wrong with it. It'll squish right now, almost to nothing. But it has just enough resilience to come back up when it needs to. So then I'm going to put this nice soft padding on top of that. This is the best way I have found to deal with my 2 saddles and the many, many horses that I go through in a year. I haven't turned a hair on a horse in a long time, and this works really well for me.
This horse belongs to a friend of mine, and he has much the same problem as the bay colt. He's got a really long back, but he's also got that hollow spot right behind his withers. And when we get out of the shadow here in a minute and get a little closer, we will see. The reason the horse is breathing hard is because he decided he didn't want to be caught. Him and me, we had to have a agreement of opinion here. So, but this horse is what? I think he's 5. I think he said he was 5. I haven't ridden him at all, and the man that owns this horse is sure enough a very knowledgeable horseman. This is a feed yard horse, and And I've been telling him for years that he needs to do something different about his padding, because look what is over here on his withers. And why is the problem is right here. Why is the spot right here? Because the saddle bridges right here and right here. And this is soft. But here's the point of the shoulder. And if there's no support in the middle here, the point of the shoulder is going to bump up against that saddle on every step that he takes, which is a quality saddle. The man paid a lot of money for his saddle. And he pays a lot of money for for his pads. As a matter of fact, I buy some pads from him sometimes. And but still, quality saddle, quality pads, and he's still marking his horse. Why? Not the fault of the saddle. The saddle can't help it. The saddle can't change what it is, and it's not the fault. The pad, somebody said, this horse is not gonna. You're not gonna find a saddle that's gonna fit this horse. This horse is going to have this hollow spot behind his withers, no matter what. And there's not a saddle maker in the world that's going to make a saddle to conform to this hollow spot. But this horse is older, and like I said, he's been rode right, so you can see the muscle right here. It is developing. The horse is not. The guy does know what he's doing. Let's see if we can slide behind here. See how good and developed. He's an older horse, so that muscling right up the top there is developed. It's doing good. But you're not going to change the conformation of this horse, and no matter what saddle you buy, it's not going to fit. This horse has an odd built back. So this is my friend Mary, and I promised her I would not make fun of her fat horse, but
his feelings are hurt right now.
that is her bariatric horse. Let's see if we can, yeah. He's a little bit on the non-skinny side. And this horse here presents a saddling problem because he does not. His backstrap, his top line is too big to support a saddle or to give room for a saddle. So the best thing that can happen to this horse, the one way that you're going to make a saddle fit on this horse is if you put him on a diet. But he doesn't need to lose any weight because he's not fat. Look at this horse's withers. See, his withers are basically an indentation on his neck. She has a saddle that she says fits, but it doesn't fit. It just rolls less than the other one. It's just not gonna fit. There's no saddle in the world that's gonna fit this horse. But a little bit of diet and exercise will make it work. But how are you gonna give him exercise if you can't saddle him? Well, horses are pretty tough, and at some point, he's just gonna have to suck it up and go, because that's the best thing for him, is just to go ahead and start going. So what I would do with this horse if I was to get him back in training, I would take my little foam pad, the $5 one, and I would cut holes right here on the other side too. I would cut 2 holes right there. Breezy. This horse doesn't usually like me. I can't believe she just came up to see what I wanted. I would cut holes right there so that he would have at least a little measure of relief. It's not much, but it's better than nothing. And then, there'd be a strip in between, and the saddle would be able to sit inside those holes, because the rest of the back is pretty good. There's really not that big of a problem with the rest of the back. The problem is right here. Now, on the other side, here's Breezy. She's a cutie. On the other side, we've got this little Ruby horse. Let me try to turn this around again so I can see. And Ruby's 26. She doesn't have all of her teeth anymore, and so she's missing a little weight. Oh. And she's not skinny Mary. No, she's maybe weight challenged. So. The problem on this horse here is very obviously, like I told you, there's a lot of nerve endings right here in the wither. So the only thing, how are you going to saddle this horse? There's a big hollow right here. The saddle is going to sit right in here, and it's going to bump on the wither, so which you don't want. the kindest thing for this horse, there's just the foam pads that I use, they are not going to give enough support because they squish down too much. So I would go ahead and get a cutback pad for this horse, maybe even 2 of them, depends on what is going on, and then we would go from there. But if this horse was younger and she had any chance of gaining weight again, I would put this horse on a diet that would allow her to gain weight as fast as possible. The one thing about horses that's different about people, I see a lot of people asking questions on the internet. How can I improve the back line of my horse? Well, you can't improve it by exercise. Horses do not build muscle through exercise. They build muscle through feed. As you can see, this non-fat horse is extremely muscled up, not because he's had exercise, because Mary doesn't ride him quite that much, not quite as much as she should. But there's muscle here. It's not fat. It's muscle. None of this is soft and squishy. Oh, there's a soft squishy spot right here. This is all muscle because this horse has been on good feed. Horses don't gain muscle by exercise. People gain muscle by exercise, but horses don't. They gain muscle by feed. Mostly, there are no absolutes in horse training. In the summertime, when Smooch is all muscled up and fat, she only needs one little felt pad between her and that saddle that I'm using on her. When I worked in the feed yard and on the ranch, we would ride our horses all day long. I mean, there were times when I got off my horse at 10 o'clock at night. And we all made sure that we had a lot of padding for our horses, because just a little bit of padding was not going to work. They were going to have their backs chewed up in one day's worth of work if we didn't protect their backs in a major way. Just take a look at your horse's back and then take a look at your saddle and see what you need to do to make the 2 of them work together. That doesn't replace a good fitting saddle. You should have a good fitting saddle. As best a fitting saddle is what you can find. But the little inconsistencies and the little individualities of your horse's back, those you can help with the right kind of padding.